father always said something so beautiful. He goes, no pain, no gain, no sweat, no sweet, no qurbani, no biryani.
Hey, this is Abdul Ahmed, also known as AKA, from The Intense Show. Today we have Sheikh Yaseen, a very well-known scholar in Muslim community in Chicago, and he's also a perfume lover. So we'll have a great talk with him today.
Don't forget 3, 2, 1, eh?
2, 1.
All right.
Hey, thank you, sir. आपको Mr. Sorry.
Is this totally live, right?
Yeah, it's like
uncut.
I don't know. This is uncut, but we can be as he can do all the cuts later. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think thank you, Mr. Yaseen, also known as Sheikh Yaseen, to coming.
AbuOud.
AbuOud. AbuOud, for coming here. And as long as I have known you, it would be okay for me to say, that I have found that the level of passion what you have behind the oud, I haven't seen another person yet. Yeah. So that's what kind of it has always excited me, even though I am also into this business and your work, but I don't have the same level of passion.
Right.
So I think it would be amazing to have this conversation with you, just to see, for us and also for the audience to educate with respect to what actually oud is.
What oud is,
and
absolutely.
And again, you running your own entity, AbuOud.
Yeah.
That's also an amazing. So just wanted to know a little bit about yourself, and I will start up, and then then have a very interesting conversation in the oud. What's happening?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Number one, it's privileged to be here at Intense Oud, fragrances from the east. So my name is Yaseen, as you said. And,
or Sheikh Yaseen.
Or Sheikh Yaseen, Brother Yaseen. I'm good, man. Sheikh also means old man, so. But Sheikh Yaseen is good. So again, AKA AbuOud, as you mentioned, I got this name when I was, trying to monetize my passion a little bit, right? Because
interesting.
It gets a little heavy on the wallet. That is what it is. That is, oud. The nature of oud is
true.
It's not child's play. It's what we see today in regular perfumes is a fraction of oud.
True.
And a fraction of a fraction, and that's not even an exaggeration, right? True. And not to mention the fact that in most of the perfumes, I mean, not to, intense oud is intense oud, mashallah, and I come here and I get from you, right? But it's for that very amateur nose, just to get used to it and kind of. So the idea is, So not to mention the fact that not only does it not have a fraction that it has a fraction of oud, but it's also synthetic oud.
True.
That's inside a lot of these perfumes.
True.
Which is there's nothing wrong with that, right? And they do a good job at mimicking the actual smell of the oil.
True.
Yeah.
What's interesting for me, and at the same time I think it's confusing for me, it's that on one hand when you talk about oud, right, it's super expensive.
Yeah.
When you talk about the real oud, we know things like getting from Assam or Cambodia, Malaysia, and when something which is so precious, right, I mean it has its own value, of course.
Sure.
But when on the other side, when you a person who is not familiar of oud, if you make him smell, they're gonna basically just, for the sake of better words, throw up. Sometimes. So why is that? Like, why is that? How on one hand it's expensive, but on the other hand it's not being valued by I would say the common audience out there.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, I guess. So I guess the first question was why is it
expensive?
Why is it expensive?
Yeah.
Why is it expensive? Period. Okay. So the reality is that just to make, for the sake of understanding, a bottle of oud. Okay. Generally, we go by the name tola or by the size tola.
Yes.
Which equates to about 12 grams.
Yes.
Or 10 grams and 12 ml, but whatever. The point is that it takes about almost 20 kilos of wood.
Wow.
To produce 12 grams or 10 grams of oud oil. Now, not to mention the process itself. So, right? And then, so first you have to go and find the oud. If you're not going for the organic. If you don't have an oud farm, then you're going and actually hunting for oud, just like you hunt animals.
Wow.
Right? So there's oud hunters. They're labeled oud hunters. They
Really?
go out and they hunt for oud.
Is really that word?
Word, yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Right? They're oud hunters. They go out, they hunt for oud. Now, this is, however, wild, and I don't want to get too deep into it, just to have keep keep in perspective. So there's wild oud, and then there is organic oud. Organic oud is oud that is planted by man. So he takes the seed, he sows it. In 5 years, the tree matures. He inoculates the tree. And how do you inoculate it? You basically drill it, and then you enter an enzyme. So by entering that enzyme into the tree,
Really?
the tree itself has its defense mechanism by virtue of which the oud is produced within that
Amazing.
tree. Yeah, I know. It's something beautiful. It's one of the creations of God.
To be very honest,
And,
I also didn't know this process prior to this.
Yeah,
so it's interesting how.
So that's for organic oud, right? And so once it's drilled and inoculated, that's an inoculated system. It's called inoculation. You enter enzyme. Some people put in fruit juice to make it a bit more sweet. Some people put in different types of serums to make it different according to their want and profile now you have to wait 2 more additional years before you can harvest the tree.
Wow.
Then you chop the tree down, you literally grind it like sawdust. Then you have to soak that sawdust. Now here's the part where you said earlier, okay, when people who don't know oud and they smell it, their first reaction is ugh.
Exactly.
Okay, so
So now you explained it very nicely.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a rigorous process.
Yeah.
Which has to go with organic structure.
And so with that, and hence the price, right?
Yes.
So with that being said, the soaking process determines whether that oud is gonna smell like a barn or whether it's gonna smell like just elegant wood.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the soaking process, now the longer you soak it, logically speaking, you will have more fermentation. And with that fermentation, and sometimes you can soak it as long as 6 months. Most of the Hindi ouds, which is the Agolacha species, most of the Hindi ouds are soaked for that because they want that's the desired scent profile for the Arabs, for the Kuwaitis, for the Saudis. That's what they like.
Right.
So that Hindi oud, so that's that long soaking process for them. For us Americans, right, for the West, particularly myself even, I make sure that our distiller he does no more than a 24-hour soaking process.
Interesting.
24 hours. Now, with that being said, there's another fold to this. So the longer it's soaked, the larger the yield, the cheaper the oud. Hence, it's being sent to Saudi and in the markets over there. There's like abundance of oud.
True.
And then they blend it and they do whatever they want with it.
So one thing which you mentioned a few minutes back away is that it could either smell like a barn or like a very elegant kind of a wood. So
Yes.
what I've heard, I could be wrong, is it a myth or is it a true statement? Is that when you smell a wood and if it smells like a barn, so that's more authentic. Is that true?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
No.
Okay. So if it
Now-
smells like more elegant wood, so
Yeah.
is that more authentic? Because the
It's
processing.
not both are authentic.
When I say
you see.
authentic, when I say okay,
Yeah.
how would you define with terms of elegant oud?
Yeah.
So is it the one that smells like a barn that's more elegant or like more adaptable easily?
So the question you're asking, Habibi, number one, is extremely subjective.
Okay.
Right? So
yep.
it's very subjective. So I can give you
Because
multiple answers.
my dad is a oud lover. He's
Yeah.
crazy about
Yeah.
oud.
Yeah.
So when he is like, okay, he wears oud, which I can't even smell.
stand, huh?
I cannot stand. No.
No, but what kind is it? Like, is it like the Assamese, the
Assamese.
hard Hindi?
Yes, hard
so you
Hindi.
See, when you go to Cambodia, when you
He especially gets from India like the raw oud from there.
Yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
wears it. I'm like, nobody in our house can stand that.
I have an oud, okay? It's a non-soak Hindi. I call it, the name that we gave this particular oud is Oud Colonia. Next time I come, I'll bring some for you.
That's great.
It's a clean oud. It's so clean that I was able to macerate it inside of real musk to extract the scent of musk into the oud oil. Now, a regular Hindi oud, which is very dark in color and very viscous in its viscosity, right? To get the scent of an alien object into there would be very difficult because it's already dense as it is.
True.
Now, if the oud is as light, so I particularly got this one, like I said, from Nagaland, non-soak, phenomenal. And the reason I called it, like I said, oud colonia is because it literally smells like almost a little cologne.
Very nice.
Like so fresh, you know. So just to end off where I was going with that 24-hour soaking process versus the 6-month soaking process.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Larger yield, a lot cheaper. With the non-soak oud, now the price goes because the price goes way up because, and this is the oud that you will find also at, like, for example, ASQ, right?
Abdul Samad
al-Qurashi.
I love that. You know, they
Right, but you will only get that oud from them if you stand at the counter long enough. You can't just, okay, I'm looking for an oud, and they'll see a foreigner and they'll just give you their level, standard stuff. But you stand there long enough, you talk long enough, and you talk their language, and I don't mean Arabic. Right?
True.
And that's where they go in the back and they will take the stuff out. It's there, it's present. But yeah, just to answer your question, that's basically the reason why it's so expensive, and not to mention a lot of the harms and the obstacles that the hunters have to go through, right? By the time it gets to the distiller, a lot of hunters are distillers, by the way. But by the time it gets to the distiller and by the time it comes to the distillation process, then you have the distillation process can take anywhere from 7 days to 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Wow.
The longer the distillation process for even, let's just say 20 kilos, for example, to get 1 tola, right? The longer the process, the better the oud. The more the time, my father always said something so beautiful. He said, no pain, no gain, no sweat, no sweet, no qurbani, no biryani.
That is funny.
So time has to go in, you need to put in time.
No, that is true. Yeah. I think one interesting question is that, look, many of us know about the oud because especially in the western side over here, the place where we live, many of the big companies have capitalized the word oud in a very nice manner, like a Tom Ford oud, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what would be one thing, like a basic person who doesn't knows anything about oud? How would they identify? Is it a real oud or is it just a synthetic, or is it's really hard to do that?
I mean, it's it's like, okay, oh my God. So to be honest with you, for the one who enjoys a good perfume, for an oud, for a perfume connoisseur, not an oud connoisseur, it's like picking out notes. There's base notes, mid notes, and top notes.
True,
right?
True. Yeah.
And within that sphere, you have the oud note, you have the woody note, right? Now, can you tell if it's synthetic or not? In 99% of the commercial ouds that are out there from Western companies, yes, it's synthetic. There's no doubt about it. Then you have the niche companies. Right?
True.
You have the a lot niche. So one of them is ours, and then there's like Ansar Oud, for example.
Yes.
Now, a bottle of his perfume will cost you anywhere up to $1,500 for a 30 ml. But there's real oud in there. We make perfume with real oud in it. Like, we put actual oud in there. And we put that oud profile, which we want to reflect along with the different florals and so on and so forth. So if you're asking, can a layman, so to speak, right? A layman go and detect oud? No, you really can't. You won't really know. You won't really know. You can look at the ingredients and it will tell you, They'll tell you the chemical compound. I have synthetic oud just for the sake of study and research. I actually got it from Firmenich. Firmenich is a huge perfume supplier.
Right,
Not perfume supplier, perfume materials supplier.
Got it. Interesting. We have known oud as being used in perfumes, right? So just wanted to kind of a little bit more expand on that, just to understand what are the different usage of oud, and does have oud any association with religious element to it? I mean, is it is it sunnah or something of that nature? Is it there, or is it or is it just a little bit more on that side?
No. So oud is very versatile. First of all, it can be used in blends. It could be used in perfumes. It can be used in actual oil blends. And of course, not to mention that it could also be burned.
Yes.
So that's the origin, where you burn the oud. A real oud connoisseur will love his oud, but will always resort back to burning his chips, because that's where you pick up the real profile of oud, the oud scent. And that brings me to the hadith of Ibn Umar. This is a tradition in our sacred traditions. It's actually in Bukhari, where it is mentioned by Ibn Umar radiallahu an, may God be pleased with him, is that the Prophet, peace be upon him, would take oud wood, and what the tradition translates it as is aloes wood, aloes wood, aloes wood, and combine it or couple it with camphor, and they would burn it. Now, oud oil particularly was not present at the time of the process. Contrary to popular belief or understanding,
makes sense.
Most people will say, "Oh yeah, the Prophet's scent was oud." Yes, it was oud, and he loved oud. Not to mention the fact that the scent of Jannah will also be oud, paradise. Right? Now there is an Israeli riwayah. This is a very interesting one. What I'm about to tell you is something very unique. So we have one oud from the Adam's Peak in Sri Lanka.
Interesting.
It is the...
What exactly is Adam Peak?
Adam's Peak is the mountain in Sri Lanka where Adam alayhi salam descended upon.
Interesting. Yes.
Right, where he came down to earth. So Adam's Peak is, again, like a very famous mountain in Sri Lanka. And Maulana Badaruddin Ajmal, the CEO of Ajmal, when he was here about 6 months ago, I had the pleasure of having him at my lab.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, he came to the lab. He was really he was blown away to see something like that, and you have still yet to come.
By the way, we also invited him. He did not came here.
Oh, no kidding. Also, because he was in the suburbs. He was in the suburbs. So he was at one of my friend's house.
Very nice.
He was staying there. Dr. Tajammul. Dr. Tajammul. He was staying at his home, and I think they were relatives from back, in Hyderabad and stuff. So anyway, he came and he related to me after seeing that I had that particular oud. He related to me a narration, but this narration is what we call an Israeli narration. What is an Israeli narration? I know there's a lot of conflict. You're like, wait a second. Israeli narration is basically a narration from the Israelites, from the prophets of Bani Israel, whose mention is in the second chapter of the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, the cow. Right? The extensive mention of them, and not to mention the Torah and so on. But anyway, the point is that he said that, and logically it made a lot of sense what he said, because that type of a narration you can't necessarily authenticate, nor can you falsify. Whereas a tradition from Bukhari you can authenticate, just to give you a perspective. So he said when he descended on that mountain, and I'm going to say what he said in Urdu. He said, Jannat se ek tehni leke oud ki utre the. He came down with a branch of oud. Now, once again, right, it's an Israeli riwayah. It's not a hadith. So just want to clarify that. So when I heard this, and then when I compared and did the math, the scent profile of a oud from it's called the Grinops wallapata species. So these are many different species of oud. There's Aquilaria melanensis, there's Aquilaria crasna, which is all Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and then finally there is Grinops wallapata. Just out of the blue, it's like this really very foreign type of a name, right?
Right.
And uski jo profile, the profile of that oud, my friend, it doesn't smell like oud. It smells like it's a very aquamarine, sort of a celestial type of a scent profile. Very greenish, very blue and green. Now, generally you would smell brown and dark and wood, but this one, blue, green, just kind of, if you can associate color with scent,
true.
You are intense oud. You should be able to do a little bit of that. So if you can associate a little bit of color with a scent profile, so green, blue, yellow, like it's just mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And inshallah, like I said, next time on Monday, I'll bring some for you on Monday. And when you smell this, and you will be like, if I gave you a blind test of that oud, you wouldn't have guessed it as to.
Really?
Most people don't. They're like, what? It's an unbelievable. So point being, so let's go back to your question, right? The religious aspect. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, he used it as with a piece of wood because the caravans would still come from the east, right? And from India and Bangalore and all those places, the caravans would come and they would carry these things with them, the chunks of wood and so on. True. Because there is no oud in Saudi. Oh, so here's another thing. Here's another.
I think this was my next question.
Oh,
actually,
is it? Okay, I'll let you ask it. Go ahead.
I think it may be the same one, but I think why is it that we can't have oud in this part of the place or in Saudi Arabia?
There we go. Okay, perfect.
So why is it, and why is it so risky? Because I know that, again, you mentioned about, Mr. Ajmal, as well as, different perfumers out there. Yeah. So they have to, I have known them and they're like, okay, they stay there in places like, Assam and, Cambodia and Malaysia. They spend good amount of time. In fact, sometimes they spend like months and months just to find out and, work and stuff like that. So why is it so restricted in that specific? Yeah. Why is that?
So just to answer it simply, it's the climate,
okay,
and the soil.
No, but don't you think that this part of the place over here we have that kind of a climate?
Well, it's not as Amazoniite.
Okay.
That climate is that climate coupled with the soil that they have.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's
because you mentioned about the organic process. So if you do the organic process,
mind you, in California, in Southern California, there is someone there who actually grew some sandalwood trees. Sandalwood.
Okay.
Not oud. They haven't got. So I inquired about that. I actually got some seeds.
Interesting. Are you trying here?
I just cut for the sake of trying it. Like I said, I got the bark. I got the actual tree stump, and I wanted to frame it, and alhamdulillah, Allah gave me the opportunity to bring it through, and so I got it, and I inquired about it. There is someone by the name of Olfactory, if you want to look him up, but he's something else. He's he's like another mad scientist like me, but he's on the ground, and he tried the sandalwood and it worked. So again, it's the soil and it's the climate. That's mainly it. And again, what I was gonna say earlier was a lot of people have this misnotion or misunderstanding that oud comes from Saudi Arabia or Dubai or Qatar or Oman. Well, again, it's too dry there. It's too dry for oud to grow. What does grow there nonetheless is our beautiful Ta'ifi rose. The Ta'ifi rose, the thorny rose, the one that you touch it and you can harm yourself. Unbelievable. It's one of the most prized.
That happens in Taif itself?
Yes, that happens in Taif itself. Ta'ifi rose comes from Taif. And it's the rose season. We just got 100 ml of it. Unbelievable. I'll bring some for you too.
Interesting.
Unbelievable. Just mind blowing. I mean, the scent profile, the crispiness, and the freshness, and it's a fresh. How do I say, harvest?
Very nice.
This is from this year.
I think it's again, we have had very extensive conversation about oud and different things and the origin of it. I think let's a little bit divert our conversation of who loves oud? Now the question comes in over here: is it loved by I would say, for the sake of, like men or women, or who loves that?
Yeah. Men or women? I mean, gender-wise?
Gender-wise.
Surprisingly enough, again, I'm an oud vendor, okay? But I'm more an oud vendor. The reason I carry perfumes is so that nobody walks away from my lab unaccounted for, at least everybody. So if you're not going to come for oud, then go ahead and grab some perfumes. And no offense, right? I like still I'm still a sucker for it. I still enjoy, guilty pleasures here and there. But, in our world of oud connoisseurship, it's almost like a sin to spray this stuff, honestly. It's like you have the synthetic, you just apply it, it's crazy. But it's an inside thing, oud.
And the reason
so
why
who's gonna?
The reason I'm asking you, because I think you may also know that, especially in Arabs over there, Saudi Arabia, that the reason why it's very popular over there. So women basically uses for their clothing, right? Like the bahur which comes up over there, and then the smell stays there for weeks actually.
Yeah.
And
so that's oud wood. So bahur is different, and oud wood is different.
But the origin is the same, right? With respect to when you burn that. So
yeah,
you could say that, right?
Sometimes.
So what I'm trying to just understand over here is that if they're applying on their clothes and is it something, it just smells amazing, when people do that. So
yeah, I mean, so first of all, yes, definitely if you're talking about gender, then it's more men that enjoy oud than women. But in my case,
women applies because for the men.
Well, no, actually, if there is a woman that's applying oud, guess what? She's applying it for herself. She's applying it for herself, man. Every oud connoisseur that I know, I mean a real oud connoisseur, not sprays. I'm talking about real oud, oil, dahn al-oud, right? Mm-hmm. If you're purchasing an oud, you're not doing... Because oud, it doesn't necessarily have silage. It doesn't have that projection.
True.
Who you doing it
True.
for? You're doing it
for
yourself. So you come into this incredible scent bubble, which... serves as aromatherapy, FYI, by the way. Not to mention the fact that, myself it's different because I'm applying throughout the day for testing and etc. Magar, what I tell others is that after a long day at work, you come home, you have dinner, you take your shower, whatever, you're just relaxing, you take a nice swipe of oud, and that relaxation that it affords you is unmatched. It's unmatched. It's number one now. Oh, and so here's the other thing. And the reason why I think that's so profound is that, you see, oud was not used for scent to begin with. Oud was, especially in Vietnam and China, oud was primarily used for medicine. One of my distillers, actually, he sent me an oud. And as soon as I opened the package, he looked at me dead in the eye on FaceTime. He's like, put it on your tongue. What's wrong with you? Put it on your tongue, you crazy man. He said, put it on your tongue. I said, you sure? I trust him already and everything. And, and lo and behold, I took it and I put it on my tongue and my tongue got numb.
Really?
My tongue got numbed.
No kidding.
And it stayed numb for about a good half hour, 40 minutes. So, point being that it is used for medicinal. It's for medicinal purposes. Oud is used for medicinal purposes, especially in the Indo-Chinese, people, right?
Interesting.
Right? It's used, and that's where the Hindutrava comes in, right? I don't know the exact name, so I don't want to kind of butcher their names, but in the Hindu tradition, they use oud. They use aloes wood. It's part of their tradition to burn oud. They use, nowadays they use agarbatti and...
So isn't that agarbatti part of oud?
It is. There is oud in there. It's kind of like a blend of oud. But see, then yeah. So we have this very special agarbatti, which we make without the bamboo. So it's just pure oud. You don't smell any additives. You don't have to use any, glue, which they use it for. Not they particularly, but people who make agarbattis, like big companies and stuff. It's safe, apparently. But yeah. Yeah, that's that.
That's interesting.
For religion and but again, to get back to your question, it's a hard one, man. For who applies oud and why?
And the reason I'm asking you is because many people who apply, let's say if a woman, right, she's applying perfume on herself, it's mainly for men. I guess you mentioned, right? Because the
Correct.
silage, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it goes the other way around also. Yes,
Yeah.
it could be for the
Pheromones.
oud self also.
Yeah.
But just like, for this. So does that element have something, does oud have some kind of element which kind of plays that role?
I don't think so. Although there was this one couple that came in. Mm-hmm. Okay. They were from the West Coast. They just came like a week ago. They were at the retreat at DS, and he came in and, he says to me, he goes, my wife and I, we agreed to only stick with oud because his wife, when she smelled anything but oud, she got a headache. And likewise with him. So they both agreed to stick with oud. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, I wish my wife loved oud. I wish my wife loved
as
oud.
much as my dad loves oud, my mom hates oud.
Well, as much as I love oud, my wife hates it.
Sorry to hear that.
She calls it the kitchen cabinet. She calls it her masalas. It's an insult to everyone, man. It's unbelievable.
That's what I said. That's what I started our podcast with. As much as it's expensive, it's not giving that due respect to it.
Absolutely. And so that's where you say it is very, very, very subjective. Like ultimate. Like it's so niche. It's so it's so just to your nose. It's love at first sight. That's exactly what it is. It's love at first sight. That's it. That's what if I was to give a name, if I was to give a slogan to an oud company, that would be it. Love at first sight. Either you like it for the first time you smell it and it hits some chords in your brain. In fact, our logo that we made, it's a brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the top. Yeah, yes.
And inside the brain, there is a wavelength that goes to the olfactory cortex. So there's a star there. So when you smell, all your senses, it goes to your olfactory cortex and it signals whether or not you can potentially appreciate that scent or not. And if you can't, then you can't. I mean, some people hate lemon.
Just hate lemon, yeah. That's
love lemon. It's true. So it's just like oud, but yeah, I mean, although there are, mind you, there are ouds, even amongst oud connoisseurs, they will hate a certain type of oud. Till this day, I know people who hate. A lot of people can't get along with Hindi ouds. Just it is what it is.
Just because it's too strong.
It's too strong, and it's the word that's used, the synonym for Hindi ouds is barnyardish.
That's okay.
Barnyardish. Barn ki khushbu.
Yes.
In the stable. Literally, yeah. I remember my grade 4 teacher. I mean, this is what, 90s, man. When she used to take us to the farm, and we used to go in the school bus, and she used to bring down the windows. And I know, and if Mrs. Kuchar is listening to this, who knows, right? She was Hungarian. Very nice lady, mashallah. I'll give her that. But she would pass through the pastures, she would roll the windows down. And all the kids would be like, oh, it smells, because, you're going through manure. Dono taraf, there's like dung, it smells like cow poo. And, I would sit there and I'm like, I still remember, but I don't know, man. So it's like love at first sight, man.
It's very funny. My dad had this oud.
Yeah.
And he has this. I mentioned, right, that if it smells like barn, as you mentioned, it's like real authentic oud. So whenever he applied, we hated it. Like anything.
Yeah.
And it literally smelled really bad.
Yeah.
But he had this, this is like real barn oud. Like oud thing smells like over there. So after 6, 7, and he used to preserve it very nicely.
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing about oud is aging. But we can talk about that in second episode or something.
After what happened, then I insisted, you really need to check this thing out. You need to really get to the oud specialist and see if it's really, really, really a oud or oud. So we took that bottle to the oud specialist.
Okay.
And he said, no, this is not oud. This is actually barn smell. So literally, it's like, that wasn't, just because, it smells like barn, it was more synthetic barn smell than compared to the actual oud itself, which he was preserving for so many months. So that's what, again, the authenticity element.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
No, so for us, for myself anyway, there is something called a GSMS report. We take it to the lab.
It might be from this. I don't know if it's applied over there back in.
It is. It can be. Those people who go out of their way, and so for us, we're built. We have a standard. We have our reputation, and people know, and Oud people, someone wants oud in Chicago, oud authentic oud oil, they know who to come to.
So is there an authority which approves that over here or not really?
No, there is like the IFRA, like IFRA for example. In Europe they're very strict. Over here they're not as, right? It's like the FDA for food, right?
True.
There's no authority. There is an authority for perfume. There's only a certain amount of aldehyde, for example, or acetone that you can add. But or benzoate or whatever, right? Any chemical that you're adding to a perfume, there's limits. Which will, kind of interact with your skin badly, give you a rash or whatever else.
Makes sense.
But for oud, no, there isn't. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that comes up. But up till this point, there, aside from you and your showroom right here, and ourselves in Villa Park, there is not many. Most of the time, it's a blind buy.
Interesting.
This sort of an industry.
So I think to end up our conversation over here, so what would be your one advice if somebody wants to test out oud, like just want to have an experience, So should they come to AbuOud?
I mean, more than welcome. If you are looking for a true experience of authentic oud without a single, just 100% authentic oud, they want to get the real stuff, then yeah, definitely give us a shout and come through. Even if you get it from somewhere else, then my advice would be make sure that, you apply it. So oud oils are different from different vendors, and it gets a little tricky. And I'll have to be honest and very transparent here. Oud is a shady market. It's a very shady market. It is what it is.
100%.
In perfumes, it's a different story because it's in perfumes and you're very transparent about it.
Yeah, and for the most part, it's synthetic anyhow.
Exactly. But when it comes to, like you said, right? You went to that oud specialist, whoever that was, right? Right, you went to, and he told you XYZ, right?
Right.
With oud, you need an expert. That's bottom line. You need an expert knows to figure out whether this is authentic or not. And so, if anybody is out there just shopping around for real oud oils, then you probably wanna, you really wanna apply it on your skin to really understand the profile. To kind of capture the profile.
Got it.
Because to apply it on your clothing and stuff, you can. But it's always suggested that apply it on some sort of a cardboard or a bottler prior to applying. Now, 9 times out of 10, I haven't experienced in my entire history with oud someone allergic. Or in fact, there is a scholar in Chicago by the name of
Yeah.
He came into my shop one time. And he said, Sheikh, swipe me. I said, what, swipe me with what? He's like, swipe me some oil. I'm like, all right. So I did not know that he was allergic since birth. His entire family, in fact.
Really?
I don't know if I should say this on here, but yeah, his entire family is totally allergic since birth.
Same thing. My brother is super allergic with oud.
Like they not only oud, any scent.
And that's my brother too.
So he said, swipe me. I said, okay. This was the month of Ramadan.
Allahu Akbar.
I swiped him. 20 minutes later, in his left hand, there was an EpiPen. He was ready to stab himself.
No kidding. It was that bad.
No, but that's what I'm trying to tell you. He did not need to use it. And at that point, he stood up and he said, Ashhadu, I bear witness that you have the most authentic stuff. Alhamdulillah. So that was...
I thought he was saying just kind of,
he didn't need to use it. He had it.
Okay, but he didn't use it.
Just in case. But, he heard it from so many different people to come to me and try it. And everybody was raving about it. And he finally came and he tried it. And alhamdulillah, everything went well. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think thank you again for having this conversation. I think this was very intense conversation about oud.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that people would love this kind of more information. I think definitely we'll have more.
I should have a second episode to this.
Definitely.
A continuation. Of some
Thank
sort.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you again for watching us.